What have we got? 4 hour. Make a start here. Okay, we'll record this as well. People, we've got 31. That's a good number. Start recording. Okay. Okay, so to finish off the course, we've done the digital. This is more a sort of general review of memory, CPU, and hardware, and storage, if you like. So so there are 3 sort of main components within the machine. One's the CPU. The other is what they call memory, and the other, which I call storage. And these sort of feed information into one another. So CPU gets its information from the memory, and the memory gets its information in the storage. The operating system, supervises all of this movement, if you like, of data. So storage devices are storage that, as the name suggests, they hold memory. They hold data even when you have no power. Memory, on the other hand, traditionally loses its data when you turn things off. It only holds data when you have power. So this one generally needs power. This one doesn't need power. So when you're, the idea is to get the information into the CPU as efficiently as possible. So we have this little sort of hierarchy here, if you like. When you sort of want to do something on a computer, like a word processing or something like that, you click on Microsoft Word and it opens up. So basically what the operating system does is it takes the program, the actual program that runs Microsoft Word, and puts it into memory. And from there, it can feed information into the CPU to be processed, and the CPU can pass information out to the memory. And that's relatively quick. It's obviously quicker than getting it from storage. Obviously nowadays it's a bit more blurred. That was years and years ago when we just had stand-up computers. Now it's a bit blurred, especially in smaller devices where you just get one storage. Usually it would be made out of flash memory, similar to be something like a solid state storage, solid state drives and things like that. They would be flash memory. So this memory storage is getting a bit blurred, but you still have, even in things with flash memory, you still have buffers and things where information's loaded up to be loaded into the CPU. So you still get a sort of hierarchy. It's not quite as clean as this one is. So basically what you're doing is as you go in towards the CPU, memory transfer if you like gets faster. And memory size, if you like, the size of what they're transferring gets smaller. Okay, so smaller. So you're transferring smaller bits but faster, you know, so the size of memory going to CPU is a lot smaller than, you know, with memory storage you can download whole chunks of data and put it into the memory, and that's all arranged from the operating system. You get a sort of within the CPU you get this cache memory, and you get the registers, which are the final destination, if you like. The registers are where the information is put to be processed. The cache memory, you have various levels, level 1, if you like, level 2, possibly level 3 even, etc. They feed information there within the CPU itself, or another chip on the other, and they could hold a certain amount of data to be fed into the CPU. So there's a little sort of scenario whereby memory information from the memory gets fed into the CPU, but also into the cache memory. So those are all within the CPU itself. So when I say memory, I mean this sort of memory, DRAM, if you like. We look at DRAM, you know, sometime. These are made out of the dreaded SRAM, which is made out of flip-flops. So storage holds data. Types of storage device, you know, the famous one is the hard drive. Nowadays we have the solid state drive. You know, they're used as the main storage devices in machines. Hard drives are still staying in there because they can hold information a little bit more than the solid state drive per unit cost. These are made out of flash memory, what they call flash memory. Okay. Other storage devices like your USB stick, again flash memory, and of course the old CDs and DVDs are still hanging in there. What else do we have? Doesn't say anything anyway. You know, all the old floppy disks. I used to have a whole pile of these things. I think the best ones are the original punch cards, where you just punch like an instruction in one card by punching holes in a card, and then you go onto the reader. You know, they certainly, you know, after 50 years, they've still got the holes in, so they're a very efficient way of keeping data. You know, not a very efficient way of using data, but a very efficient way of keeping data. Memory is usually made up of DRAM. Even in small devices, there's usually a very small bit of buffer DRAM in between the storage and the CPU, to just to speed things up, acting a little bit like the cache memory there. So we'll look at DRAM. DRAM, D for dynamic, S for static. They both need power. That's not the distinguishing thing. It's just static holds the memory all the time. If you've got power, dynamic needs refreshing. They're held by capacitors, and the capacitors lose charge. So they need to be refreshed. Memory. So memory, if you like. So the memory holds data, and if you like, we have a memory system, and it consists of a series of boxes, if you like. Boxes of the same size. In fact, all the boxes are usually 1 byte, i.e. 8 bits. They might not think that's very much in terms of computing, but that's how it's done, so that's that. green. So for instance, if I was to store an integer, I would need 4 of these bytes. A standard integer is 32 bits, so they would go over 4 bytes. 4 bytes. So that's a standard integer. So when you declare in your program an integer, if you like, it allocates a space in memory, which covers 4 memory addresses. The memory addresses are addressed sequentially, obviously in a binary number, but the first one is 0 and it goes up logically, sequentially. So if we wanted to get this piece of data out of the memory, we would say, can we have a memory, can we have the integer at address 5? Okay, so we would need the 5 and we would know how many address spaces to use, to take out. It's as simple as that. This place contains instructions, usually. Sometimes they're on a separate, but generally they're the same, instructions and data. It's all in the same place. As I said, the operating system directs where stuff is. When you open a program, it directs where you can put that program. Obviously, it doesn't want to throw it somewhere where something else is happening, so it has to manage that particular space. So the addresses actually run from 0 to whatever the address length is, and it's usually one of these numbers: 64, 128, 256, etc. Obviously, it doubles in the number of bits, so it phenomenally increases in the number of addresses. Okay. It doesn't mean to say if you have an addresses that runs from 0 to 64 bits, if you like. 64 would be 2 to the power 64 addresses, if you like, because we have the 0. The last address would be 2 to the 64 minus 1. Okay, that would be the last, because we start off at 0, we get an extra 1. Okay, so the last address would be 64, 2 to the 64 minus 1. It doesn't mean to say you actually have that physical space to store data. Okay, it's set up with, say, 64 address lines, and it has 2 to the power 64 addresses, possible addresses, but it doesn't mean to say you have 2 to the 64 actual addresses. Often quite considerably less. It depends on the amount of hardware that is actually physically installed in the machine. And likewise, you can probably, when you say, you know, I can install some more RAM to make my computer faster, you're putting that RAM in the address space, but that address space is already set up. Okay, it's just that there is nothing there and it can be filled in with extra RAM. When you switch on the computer, you have a little program called the BIOS. The BIOS is a hard-coded program that comes with the machine itself, and what that does is, amongst many of its tasks, is it reads and writes to every single bit of memory possible. And so it can find out if it writes and then nothing comes back, it assumes there's nothing there to hold that bit of data. So it can map out what bits are there and what bits aren't there. The address space, if you like. So that's the address, and we have the CPU. So the way it sort of plays around, it's like a little dance actually with it, you know, moving data from the memory to the CPU and from the CPU back to the memory.
Would I be able to ask you a question? Sorry about that. Would I be able to ask you a question about RAM for a second?
RAM, okay.
I, for my birthday, got a new thing of RAM, and when I installed it, my computer wouldn't boot up. But when I took the RAM out, it would, because it's a thing that like single sticks of RAM will work to boot up a computer, but sometimes double sticks won't. Do you have any idea why that is?
No, to be honest, no, unless you have to rejig the BIOS.
I did that. It didn't work.
Okay, that's the only
For
thing.
some reason, just when I took the second stick out, it booted, and then I put the second stick back in after that, and it started working.
Okay, I don't know. Sorry, no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's something I knew occurred, but just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, usually when I've done it, well, I've never actually done it on a modern laptop. You know, we usually do it on the old machines. They're about 10 years old in the lab, and it works okay there. But you have to. I don't know about the RAM. I think it picks up, even those pick up the RAM automatically. It should pick it up automatically. You know, like I was saying, the BIOS reads and writes to every memory location. So, you know, it's just a plug and play. It's the same as anything you add to a computer. The BIOS should just pick it up and
no, the BIOS detected it was there. It just didn't let the computer itself boot up. So I could get to the BIOS, and that was it.
All right. No, there's something funny with that now. No, that doesn't sound.
Yeah, but seemingly it is a common thing that can happen where 2 sticks of RAM won't let it boot, but 1 stick will.
1 stick will. No, sorry, don't know.
Okay, I'll
ask around and see if I can find out anything more about that, or look it up. Okay, that's great. So, any more questions, discussions, interesting facts? Anything. Save me keep top of a box, you know. It's good to have a little bit of a break occasionally and have to interest something else of interest if you've got something of relevance. No. As I said, we used to do last year we have a practical where we introduced RAM into an old computer, but I never thought there was any particular difficulty about it or anything like that. So usually with modern laptops, you know, they're not so easy to take apart. So I usually just take them in and get someone else to do it. So rather than years ago with the box type computers, you're able to, you know, unscrew them fairly easily and push the boards in and all sorts of things like that. But it's like the same with cars. You know, years ago you used to take them to bits and take the engines out and put them in, but nowadays you know there's so many electronics in there that it gets a bit beyond, unless you're familiar with it. Okay, so the next thing is how does this work? And the powers that be, if you like, have come up with this sort of, you know, broad brush and sort of approach and called it the fetch execute cycle. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea how the computer actually takes an instruction and processes it. So it's been given four stages: instruction time, and 2 in instruction time, and 2 in execution time. So there's 4 of these: 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay. So the first one, control unit gets instruction from memory and puts it into a register. So we know about the memory. So the memory sits here, if you like, with all the instructions. So we have instruction 1, you know, instruction 2, if you like, then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the address. So what it does is it puts the address. What's the address? of the instruction on the address bus. And it has what is called a read-write line, which is on the control bus, if you like. And it sets it to read. Okay. So when it's moving data from the memory to the CPU, it reads. And when it's moving data from the CPU to the memory, it writes. Okay. So it has this sort of, read, write. In fact, a lot of these instructions at this level are move instructions, moving data from memory to the CPU, moving them around the registers, and then moving them back again. And these are instructions that are exactly the same as we've been doing up to now with our logic circuits. So we could, with the CPU, we could write out a truth table. We could write down all the possible instructions, and we could itemize exactly what we want our circuit to do with them. So it's exactly the same way on that. So puts it into a register. So we put instruction into the register. So instruction into the instruction register. It also, for interest, it also increments the instruction pointer register. Okay, so if we want to read, if you like, instruction 1, okay, we put a 0 on we put a 0 on the read on the address bus. Okay, we've set the thing to read. Okay, we read that and put it into the instruction register, and then we increment the instruction pointer register to 1. Okay. Okay, so it's then pointing, again, years ago, that dates me, if you like. We used to program in C, and it was all about pointers and pointers to pointers, and even pointers to pointers to pointers and things like that. And pointers are basically the address rather than the actual variable themselves. So you can do things. An instruction pointer would be a particular place in the memory. So this one is the address of the next instruction. So it's there's another thing about pipelining. It's one thing about pipelining. We move on, if you like. We get ready for the next instruction. So that sort of makes things a bit faster. Okay, so we get the instruction into the register. Okay, the next thing it does is it decodes that instruction. It decodes that instruction. Well, it basically finds out what it was and determines the memory location of the needed data. Okay. So it really, the instruction time is preparing. You bring in the instruction, and then you really find out what exactly you need to do for the instruction. Next two are taken into execution time. Execution time, if you like. So again, it depends on the instruction. This sentence isn't quite correct. Control moves data from memory to registers. Not in ALU. And if you like, that should be if necessary, which I can't spell. ALU. So if it's like a mathematical thing or 3++, then it will need the ALU. But a lot of these instructions, if you ever get a chance to look at an assembly instruction, an assembly is in mnemonics, if you like. So instead of having the numbers, you know, like 9B, we could have add. I don't actually know when the 9B is add, but add would just be an 8-bit number, okay? And that would be the instruction for add. You can actually, if you're very well up on these things, and as I said, people years ago used to do more of this than they do now, and you can still do it now, is you can actually program it in the numbers themselves, you know, you can say 9B and just write it all out in hexadecimal. Those were the days, as they say. Control unit moves memory from register. So again, we need the address of the memory location. And that's put on the address bus. That goes onto the address bus. And the read-write line will be set to read. So we just read the data into the CPU. If we need to do something like add 3 or whatever, we can send it to the APU if appropriate. Send to ALU. If it's an add, for instance, or even an OR, you could have an OR there. It would be sent to the CPU, the ALU. The ALU would do all those sort of basic mathematical functions. Okay, so you get the instruction, you decode the instruction, you bring in the data needed to carry out the instruction if there needs to be data, and then the last thing, again, it doesn't always care. Sometimes it's just move data from one register to another, so it wouldn't need anything from the outside world. So this little scenario doesn't actually cover all sorts of instructions. It's just a general thing. But say this was adding, we have a sum, so we want to store that back into memory. So again, we put the address onto the address bus. And then we set the read-write line to write. Okay. And simply the read-write line is just one line that can be either 0 or 1. So I can't remember which way round they are. If it's read is 0, write is 1. So it's as simple as that. You know, you could set up something on the logism to be a very simple CPU, and you could read stuff in, and you know, you could set up a memory system as well. You should be able to do that a little bit now. So that's the basic fetch execute cycle. So to recap on that, I'll maybe go through that again. It's a bit confusing sometimes. Maybe do the rub all that out. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll close that down and open it up again. Okay. Okay, the fetch execute cycle, just to recap, because that's probably a little bit confusing. I don't know, some people, or maybe not, I don't know. Let's see if so we got that. still working. Oh yeah, seems to be doing something anyway. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Oh, Jesus, go on. It's slow. It's slow anyway. Anyway, we'll let it go on. So the effects execute cycle. The first bit was probably the most confusing bit. Is when it gets the instruction. Now the instruction from memory. The instruction from memory. So this is the first stage. So the instruction is at a certain address. So a certain address. So the address 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so instruction 1, instruction 2. So it gets the address. So address 1 is put onto the address bus. Okay, and the read-write line is set to read. And it puts the instruction into the instruction register. Okay. A lot of the registers, there are a number of registers within the CPU. They all have particular functions. Okay, there's just something like called a general purpose register, the accumulator, where if you were adding numbers, that's where they would go. But there is an instruction register, so the instructions tend to go to that. And normally these instructions in the programming would be sequential. So the instruction, we have an instruction pointer, if you like, and this contains the address of the instruction. Okay, and this is incremented, so it points to the next instruction. So if this was from instruction 1, then this would be pointing set to point. It's incremented, so this would move up. Okay, so then this one is pointing to instruction 2 while the rest of it is carrying out instruction 1. So when it needs the next instruction, when the instruction goes past, it's already there, ready to go. Okay, so it's like a little bit of pipelining thing. So the instruction gets put into the instruction register and the instruction pointer is incremented. So it points to the next instruction. Okay, the control unit decodes the instruction, if you like, and determines the menu of feeding data. Straightforward. We come to the execution time. Okay. So it depends on what is required. You know, this little scenario assumes that you're actually going to do something, you know, an addition or something with the instruction. A lot of these instructions, if you look at an assembly program, and you can actually sometimes with, I don't know whether you're doing C or C++, but you can actually go and look at the actual program itself in assembler when it's been compiled, and you can actually go through the thing with assembler. But it'll probably take you years, but you can do that. And a lot of the instructions are just move instructions. You're moving data from the memory to the CPU, to the CPU to the memory. A lot of it is just moving data around. Very few of the instructions actually do anything more than just move data around. So execution time, we'll assume that the instruction would say an add. Okay, so what we can do is control the moving data from memory to register. Okay, again, we put the address on the address bus. Address bus. Data on the address bus. Okay, and we read again. Okay, and the data gets put into the register. This time, probably something like the AX register or the BX register, the general purpose registers. So if it's a number to be added, it'll be put into the AX. The instruction could be that you add it into the AX register straight away, so you just need one instruction. So it would execute the dexter. Then to add it, it would need to be sent to the ALU and back again. And then the final one is only different. Oh, the read-write line would be read. Okay, here. So if it's an addition, we get a sum, don't we? And then we can put that back. Okay, so control it stores the information. So again, address on the address bus. Address bus. And instead of read, we write. So we write to, so the address is in the memory, so we write whatever is on the data line, data bus, if you like. We write whatever that is into the memory. Okay. So it's simple. You read the instruction, decode the instruction. If you need any data, you read that in. You carry out the instruction. If it needs to go to the ALU, you do that. And then if you produce something, you can write it back to memory. Okay. Oh, well, that's that. So if I go on, that's more or less the difficult bit. The rest is just the rest of the dope. You just need to read registers, as I was saying, high-speed temporary storage areas. These are where the instructions, the data being carried out. We have a number of them. We've introduced at least 4 there. We have the instruction register, the instruction pointer register. We have the general registers, the AX, the BX, and then we have all sorts of other interesting count registers. We have registers to point to data. For instance, you know, if you have, you know, your memory, and you have an integer, for instance. Okay, integer, blue. So integer, generally, a general size integer takes 4 bytes or 4 memory locations. So you would have an instruction for that particular address. So it would point to the base of the whatever you're trying to get hold of. It might be an integer with more memory, or it might be a structure, or even you know, what they called object. An object, as in object orientated language. You know, the object would have a base address. Okay, that would hold the first. You know, once it gets the first one, it then can work through and read all the rest of them in. So it needs the first one. Okay, so that will go into a particular register. So there's various registers for different types of variables, if you like. Cache memory. Again, the CPU has this very small amount of memory in it, usually assigned levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, if you like. You know, different registers. Level 1 is the smallest little bit of cache memory. Level 2 is a bit bigger, and information is fed. You know, For instance, you know, you can see there the variable there, the integer variable, is over 4 memory addresses. So what it does is that when the CPU, you know, requests an address, it not only copies that particular address into the register, it copies a very small chunk of memory into the cache memory, usually blocks of 4 or blocks of 8 or something like that. So as you can see, if you're looking for an integer, you'll want the next 4. So it's actually copied all of those 4 into the cache memory, so they're there ready to be put into the register, already there, because they've been copied on the first request. So we don't, the next 4 requests will hit, if you like, hit the cache memory. So the idea is to get as much of the needed data into the cache memory. So there are little ways around it. It's not always, you know, you might have instructions where you have a jump, you know, and then you just have to start all over again. So it's not foolproof, but it generally works, because things like instructions or data is usually in a block, so it usually works. Different levels of cache, microprocessors, transistors, made up of lots of transistors, and the transistors are made up into those gates that we've been looking at. So within your chip of your CPU, there's millions of gates. It's well, most of it's sort of like cache memory. It's just duplicated circuitry. It's not intricate. You know, the actual the bit that's relevant is very small, but the rest of it is just memory and duplication bits. We have, as we were talking earlier, we have the RAM. Okay, so the DRAM would be the blocks you can actually add to the computer, if you like. Get a bit straight there. Years ago, we used to talk about RAM and ROM. Okay, ROM is really a type of RAM, and we'll look at DRAM and we'll look at SRAM if we have time. And this is the old sort of setup. ROM is actually a type of RAM, a random access memory, and usually these are stored in a grid pattern. Okay, where you read and write them along the bottom, if you like. And what you do is you get a current. If you want to read that line, you put a voltage on that, and you set up something to store the data at each of these crosses. So if you want to read that particular data or write, you put a current there, and you put your read or write along the bottom, and you can read, write. Okay. So that's where the random access comes in. You can randomly access any of these at the same time as any other. There's not a hierarchy. All addresses can be set in the same time. Okay. So sometimes it's made out of DRAM. As I said, DRAM is dynamic. Static RAM is not dynamic, while static RAM consists of flip-flops. And the reason why it's static is it holds its charge all the time, holds the data all the time. Dynamic holds the charge with a capacitor, which sort of leaks. So it has to be refreshed every so often, 5 or 6 times a second. But it's cheaper than SRAM, and it also takes up less space, about 10 times smaller. Other sorts of things, Cosmos, CMOS, that's just probably needed just into the BIOS. So the BIOS needs a little bit of a battery to hold some of its information. You know, general things like time, date, things like that. So the battery usually is installed in the chip, and the chip usually lasts 10 to 15 years. So all computers are going to blow up in 15 years. They're not made to last any longer than that. Flash memory is now the new kid on the block, as it were. All the magnetic storage is gone, is going or gone. Hard drives are the last one there. Hard drives are still used because you can store vast amounts of data on them, you know, even more than flash memory, and they're not so expensive anyway. So they'll probably still be around for a little bit while longer. Flash memory is better because you can access it faster, and it's also you know there's no moving parts, so it's a little bit more robust. You know, if you drop it on the floor, you get a good chance it'll survive. Whereas if you drop a hard drive on the floor, you may or may not be so lucky. System bus. Within the computer or the motherboard, if you like, all the components are connected with a system bus, a series of wires, you know, that run along the board. So each wire has one bit, okay, and components are just connected into these very simply. Okay, so you can get a number of them. Obviously, disadvantages, you can only have one people using the bus at the same time. But there's ways around that to make that a little bit more efficient. So that's that. So the data bus, address bus, control bus. Clock signal is also on the control bus there. So we looked at the data bus, the address bus, in terms of the fetch execute cycle. Bus speed, how fast it runs. Expansion buses, they're slightly different. Just adds functionality to your computer. And all these ports like USB, they're just really protocols. How you know, obviously it's like different languages, you know, it's you either speak in English or French or Irish or whatever it is. Presuming that if you both know the language, you can communicate. But if one person doesn't know French and you're talking French to them, they haven't a clue what you're saying. So it's just to make sure that the person talking and the person receiving knows the protocol. I.e., if I send bits from here, you'll know what those bits mean. So all of these really are different protocols for different things, you know, for when the hard drive feeds into the main memory, and when you push a USB stick and you save data on it. Obviously, it's no good if the USB stick sort of corrupts all that data or formats it slightly different. So it's just a protocol of movement. The other thing which that's the last thing we'll give up, I think. Definitions. Years ago, we used to talk about RISC and CISC, and it's basically the instruction set. So RISC would have all of its instructions the same time. The beauty of that is that the hardware is simpler. You know, if all your instructions are 8 bits, then that's all you have to cope with on your hardware. If you have the instructions, some 8, some 16, some 32, then you've got to make hardware more complicated. So I think most machines now are RISC, and you know, they're more simpler. In terms of that, you probably need more instructions, so programming is easier for CISC, maybe. I'm not sure that's logical, but still. RISC is more instructions, but they're very simple instructions. Okay. Dual core and program. Nowadays, years ago, we used to have a CPU that did one instruction. Obviously, it would do the instructions very, very quickly, but still only one instruction at a time. Now with what they call dual core or quadruple core or 8 core or whatever, you can do 8 instructions instead of 1. So each instruction would have its program counter, it would have its instruction, it would have its set of registers, it would even have its set own cache memory. I think maybe the level 2 or level 3 is more general, and then the individual ones have their own little bits of cache memory. There is some notes later on about that if you want to read them. Okay. So that's dual core. Parallel processing. Well, parallel processing, you can run with dual core, you can run 4 programs. And in theory, you should be able to run one program on 4 processors. But you have a problem with that, is that most programs, and I expect the programs you've already written, are only written to run sequentially on one processor. So whereas you can have 4 things running at the same time, you can't really, unless you've actually programmed it to do that, i.e. to run on a parallel environment, then it won't run on a parallel environment. But it means you can run 4 things. You can run a web browser and your music in the background and your word processing. So that's 3 programs already. So they could all run at the same time, exactly the same time. But to run the same program on 4 is more a difficult thing. Okay, I think we'll call it a day on. That's enough of that. So we'll have a break for 10 minutes and then I'll... Any questions, discussions, interesting facts, things I've said wrong? Anything? Anyone out there going to give us a bit of discussion? Reset Cosmos. You might reset Cosmos. There's a question. There we are. What do you mean? Cosmos is CMOS, sorry. CMOS, as far as I know, the only example I've got here, it's probably used elsewhere, is in the BIOS. You can actually reprogram the BIOS. That's possible. You can update the BIOS or change the BIOS. I think it's fairly easy. I've never done it, but you just sort of set it up. Only one survives. If you get it wrong, then you might ruin your computer terminally. So it's not to be undertaken lightly, although it's a fairly straightforward process. As I said, I've never done it, but you can update it. And as it's flash memory, it's probably easier to update now than the modern flash memory is more robust than, you know, the flash memory used to have 10 years ago. So you can set that. Oh, that's the BIOS. Sorry, the Cosmos actually. CMOS just well, that's the BIOS. The BIOS is flash memory. So I'm getting confused here. So that can be updated. Okay. So that's all right, but it's not really answer that question. The CMOS is the settings of the BIOS, and there's various settings, date, time, and also what order you want to look for devices from your, if you like, for your operating system, you know. So you might look at the CD-ROM or the USB drive first, and then look at the hard drive or the SS drive. So they can be set by the general BIOS. You can just log into BIOS and reset those settings and update the CMOS settings from there. That's fairly straightforward. I don't know whether that answered your question, but that's the only thing I know about the CMOS. It's part that needs battery, it needs power. CMOS needs power, and you have to have it there because you have to set certain things. They can't be preset. You can't preset the time. It doesn't work. Okay, so unless there's anyone, yes, no. Okay, so we'll have a 10-minute break, and then I'll come back with a tutorial. Stop talking. Okay, we'll sort out. Close the screen down and sort out a tutorial. Boom, boom. Oh, oh. Okay. Okay, so just wanted to work through this. Remember that I don't know, you here. So short integer. So an integer would be 32 bits. So a short int would equal 16 bits. And a byte int equals 8 bits. So the first one is to convert those. So choose complement number. Because the adder just adds, it doesn't minus. So to do a minus sum, we need to use the 2's complement form. Okay, so say we wanted to do, let's say 9 minus, or 3 minus 9.
Sir, could you record this?
All right. You want me to record it? Oh, God. Right. Resume recording. Okay. There we go. Right. 2's complement. There we go. first thing, short integers. So integers are usually 32 bits long, your standard integers. You could have short integers of 16 bits or byte integers of 8 bits. And while we're at it, you could also have long integers of 64 bits. Okay. And some languages allow you to declare this selection of integers, long, short, bits, etc. Okay, so 2's complement numbers, the minus form is going to be slightly different. And this is because in the adder, we just want to add. So to do a minus, we add, you use the same circuitry as a positive number. So in terms of that, we fill up with ones instead of fill up with zeros. So for instance, 3 will be filled up with zeros, do bytes, or 4, 5, I don't know what that is, you fill up with ones. So those are significant bit, that's equals minus, this is positive, okay, first bit, the sign bit. So if we want to do 3 minus 1, 3 in short integers. So 3, let's start with 3. So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay, so that equals 3. Now we want minus 9. Okay, so we have to work out what the 2's complement form of minus 9 is. So first of all, we start off with plus 9. So plus 9 is 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. We flip. So we change all the zeros to ones. And we add 1. So it's 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So when we come back to here, we can put the numbers in, do our sum. So that equals minus 9. And we do our sum by adding. 1 plus 1 equals 0. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 equals 0. Carry the 1. 1. And then 1, 1, 1, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so the sum, you got a minus number. Okay. What's that number? Okay, so you have to do the opposite. Okay, so the opposite is your minus 1. 1 from that equals 1 from that equals 1. Oh, 0, 0, 1. 1, 1, 1, and you flip 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. Okay, so you get that number. So this number is 1s, 2s, 4s equals 6. Okay, so this number therefore equals minus 6. Okay, it's a minus number because we've got a 1 at the end. Okay. So 3 minus 9 is minus 6. Okay. Magic, isn't it? If you did it the other way round, okay, So we want 9 minus 3. Okay. So minus 3, if you work out that one first, is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. You have to put on at least one leading 0, or else you won't get the flip right, but you don't, maybe not necessarily have to do them all, but I'll just do them all just to, you're going to get the same answer without plus 1. That's 1, 0, 1, 1. So 9 would be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. And minus 3 would be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. Again, we add. Okay. 1 plus 1 equals 0, 1, 1. 1 plus 1 equals 0, carry the 1. 0, carry the 1. See, they all disappear. And the beauty of it works because in computing we have fixed spaces. We have fixed spaces. So there's nowhere to keep that last carry. Okay, I think they do keep it somewhere, but it doesn't appear in the registers. Okay, it gets lost. So what we're left with is plus 6. Positive number because we have a leading 0. Okay, so that's basically it about bi and Q's complement numbers. So there's some numbers you can just change into their 2's complement form. Remember that positive numbers like this plus 9 are just the normal binary numbers made up to the 16 bits. Minus numbers, you have to go through this performance here. Find the positive number 3, flip, add 1. Okay, there you go. You can battle on through that. So you can ask me, I'll be here for questions. The numbers like this, 13 minus 2, so just fill in like I've done there. Minus 2, just fill in there, and then fill in, I don't know what minus 2 is. Well, I think you work it out up here, don't you? Minus 2, there's minus 2, you see. Once you worked it out there, you can fill it in down there and do the sum. Okay. There we are. I'll leave you with that for a few minutes. What that is. I'll stop that. Okay, so I'll sit here and if you have any problems, give me a shout. So you can try those. This is one you could hand up. You can fill all that into the thing if you want to.
See the way you have the binary numbers, like for 3 and minus 9. Like, how do you know, like, what that is? Like, how do you know, like, there's 2 1s on the end, or like even for 9 there? How do you know what they are?
9's just the normal binary number for 9. So, for instance, 9, you can divide by 2 methods. 2's into 9 go 4, remainder 1.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
2's into 4 goes 2, remainder 0. 2's into 2 goes 1, remainder 0. 2's into 1 goes 0, remainder 1. So the number is 1, 0, 0, 1.
Grand. Yeah.
That gets you your positive numbers, and then you can do this performance to get the negative numbers. Okay, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. That's grand. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't really go into how you got the binary numbers, but just the divide by 2 method, or you could look them up on your calculator. You don't have to. You can use either method there.
So to get the negative number, you just add 1.
Sorry.
To get the negative number, you just add 1, plus 1.
To get the negative number, you have to change all the zeros to ones, and then add 1.
And then add. So first flip and then add 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You get a positive number. Add 1.
Mhm. It doesn't look like the type, does it? Do-do-do-do. Hmm. Oopsie, no. Okay, I don't know how people are getting on with that. I'll go through just while it's recording. Yeah, it's recording. Just to clarify how you get the other way, if you like. So, if you're converting the following signed byte integers to normal base 10 numbers, you do the opposite. First, we'll say whether it's a normal binary or a positive or negative. So, is it positive or negative? So, if it's got a leading 0, then it's positive. If it's got a leading 1, it's negative. So, for instance, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0 would be positive. To find that binary sort of 1s, 4s, 8s. So that'd be 8 plus 4 equals 12. 12. Okay. Right. If it's a minus number, so you've got 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, it's a minus number. So we do the opposite. We minus 1. 0, either 1, 1. And 0, 1 plus 1 equals 0. 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1. Okay, once you get that, you flip. Okay, and then you work out what that number is. So that's 1s, 2s, 4s, 8s, 16. 16 plus 2 equals 18. So therefore this number equals minus 18. Okay. Oh. So this is minus 18. Hopefully that's correct, and that's plus 12. Okay. So if it's a positive number, you don't have to do anything, just convert it into a normal number. If it's got a 1 in front, that means it's a minus number. You do opposite to up here. You minus 1, you flip, and then you've got the positive number, which you can work out. And then once you've got the positive number, you can go back and do go back and make minus 1. You can also use this number. That's the 1s, 2s, 4s, 8s, 16, I think. 16 plus 2 plus 1 equals 19. Okay, 1 equals 18. You can do that. But remember to minus the 1 as it goes through the one, 0, minus 1, 2, etc. Okay, so we get an extra 1 in here. Extra. Okay. So we have to take away the 1. Okay, we get an extra 1 in there. So there's this is 8 plus 4 equals 12. This one is 1 plus 2 plus 16 equals 9, but the answer is 18. So you minus the 1. Okay, any questions? Okay, I think with the last bit there, I went through it now. I might do that bit in the last question there. Question about to do that in the lecture. They're quite interesting. But you need to demonstrate. Have a go at those on the the word here has a synthetic calculator. You can find it. Calculator, here we are. Standard. So you can set it as you can set it as a programmer. Okay. If you haven't found it already, and you can do the ones in here. But remember binary. So you could go to hex, isn't it? Hex. And then you can go 6A, C, O. Okay. And then what you want to do. Add the two numbers. Add 2, 1, D, 2. Right. Equals. Right. 8cc. So that's one answer for you. So you can do them on there, but make sure they're short integers, because you get different answers if you have them as integers. So it's different answers if you have them as integers. Okay. Keyword, cancel. Keyword. So 6A C O plus 2 1 D 2 equals. Okay, keyword. Integer variable. Okay. Right, yeah, I'll leave that one with you to ponder. So, as I said, I'll go through that in the practical. So we'll call it a day on that, since now it's now the dreaded 1 o'clock. No, I don't think so. Right, any questions before I go? It's useful to know about the twos complement forms. I think you'll do it in maths. I don't know whether you do much maths, but you'll do it in maths. So, okay, that's great. As I said, you can always email me if you have any questions, or ask me on Teams. Thank you. Anyway, we'll call it a day.
Bye.